You're listening to The Gary Harris Show on Tide 100.9 in Tuscaloosa.
Flows in the city. Click TuscaloosaThread.com for more local news, sports, and weather coverage all throughout the day. It's free. Don Hartley Town Square Media, Tuscaloosa.
The Gary Harris Show. UCM host Tider Insider TV. Crimson Tide Kickoff. Play-by-play for Alabama sports and sports director for WVUA 23. It's time for the Gary Harris Show on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, good morning, everybody. It's game week. Alabama football is back. Welcome into the Gary Harris Show for this Monday morning, August 26, 2024. I'm your host, Gary Harris. Wyatt Fulton in today, manning the controls, taking your phone calls on the Pinnacle Park at North River hotline at 205-342-9904. That's 205-342-9904. We got a jam-packed show for you today, as you might imagine, with it being game week and actually coming off, it's week one. We come off of week 0 where we had a few games and some very interesting outcomes, to say the least. And, of course, high school week 0 was much busier on Friday night. And now we're into week 1 with all of the SEC teams getting cranked up and actually a busy Thursday night schedule, a Friday night schedule, and then a Saturday schedule and a Sunday night game as well. So it's going to be a busy week 1 of college football. We'll get into all that this morning. We'll get into your phone calls. But first, I need to tell you this hour of the Gary Harris Show being brought to you, as always, by Alabama Credit Union, your trusted partner for financial success. Embrace financial well-being with Alabama Credit Union. Find out more at alabamacu.com. That's alabamacu.com, or get by and see them at one of their many locations around the state of Alabama, including their main office right here in Tuscaloosa. Alabama Credit Union, loans for real life. Some rules and restrictions do apply. See if you're eligible for membership and join today and feel good about your money and put a little extra change in your pocket. All right, here's the rundown for today. Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com and Tider Insider TV at 9:30. Preview Alabama season opener and also talk recruiting. Then at 10:30, Casey Smith on golf. We made it to the Tour Championship this week at Eastlake in Atlanta, and Nick Dunlap certainly would have been there had he gotten those 500 points for his win at the American Express Championship when he was an amateur. He did not get those points. He did not make it to the final 30, but Justin Thomas did. By the hair of his chinny chin chin. It didn't look good. He did not play real well the first 3 days, but yesterday had one of the finest rounds of the day, a bogey-free 68, and he got in as the 30th and final player at Eastlake. So we'll run all that down with Casey Smith on golf at 10:30. As I said, your phone calls are welcome on the Pinnacle Park at North River hotline, 205-342-9904. Couple of notes. Of course, as we said, high school football got cranked up last Thursday night. We had a full schedule of games on Friday night. Unfortunately, marred by tragedy over the weekend. Morgan Academy outstanding quarterback passed away, and Caden Tellier, who is, as I said, a fine quarterback for them, suffered a injury on Friday night against Southern Academy. And then he was airlifted to UAB on Friday night and wound up passing away. And certainly a tragic start to the high school football season. There is a GoFundMe account to help out the family in Caden's memory. I've got it linked to my socials, my WVUA23 Gary Harris page, my Twitter page at Gary Harris _WVUA. So we want to certainly send out our condolences and prayers to all his friends, family, and teammates this morning. Far as college football is concerned, I'm not shocked by this. I talked about this on Friday, Wyatt. I didn't pick the game, but I love Georgia Tech plus the 10.5 or 11. I just thought that, Georgia Tech could play with Florida State. The only surprise in the game, if you watched it, was that Florida State had a chance to win. They got outplayed, but special teams and some mistakes by Georgia Tech kept Florida State in it, but ultimately Georgia Tech wins with a field goal. And I'm sorry, Wimp. Listen, Wimp was not alone. Wyatt, I don't know how you felt about it. A lot of people were saying take SMU. I'm thinking, that many points on the road to open the season, you're still SMU. I know you're going into the ACC, and everybody's talking about they can compete in the ACC. I didn't see it. I just thought that was way too many points. They won the game. very fortunate to win the game. It took a sideline pass, I think, 35 yards or so in the final minute and a half to win it. But they get the win, but they don't come close to covering. UNA lost in that FCS kickoff game down in Montgomery. And there were some other sprinklings of games here and there, but as we said, full speed ahead this week. As far as NASCAR is concerned, I love Saturday night racing. I've said that before. What a race down at Daytona. And Harrison Burton, what a story. Already lost his ride with the Wood Brothers. He won't be back next year. He does not have a ride. They've not had a good season, but he held off Kyle Busch in a spectacular finish and gets his first career win. It's the 100th win for Wood Brothers. And, now they're in the playoff. So it's crazy how all this works. NFL preseason is over. The season will start a week from Thursday night. So, football's here, full speed ahead. And, we're excited to be a part of it. All right. We're going to start off the show by jumping out on the Pinnacle Park at North River Hotline and welcoming in our pal Corey from Trussville. Always enjoy hearing from my man, Corey. Good morning, Corey.
Good morning, Gary. How are you this morning?
Doing great, my friend.
Well, first of all, I was able to watch the Thompson-Grayson game, and that was an incredible game if you got to watch it. For anybody that doesn't know, Grayson and Thompson played on ESPN2 last night. And
on Thursday night.
Yeah, Thursday night. And it was a display of Alabama talent versus Georgia talent. And the way it went was Grayson scored on their opening drive. And then it was 7-0 for a long time. And then midway through the third quarter, Antoine Fagan had a scoop and score. And then, or someone poked it out, and then Antoine Fagan scooped and scored it. It was 7-7. And then they went to overtime. And then for high school football, you start on the 10-yard line. And then Thompson scored. Made it kicked the extra point, made it 14-0. And Grayson said, you know what, we're here to win this game. They scored a touchdown, and then they had a formation in two-point conversion where they had, I think, 6 or 7 offensive linemen, 2 defensive backs. Two defensive linemen in the backfield, and they direct snapped it to the running back and just plowed their way through, and the running back went 2 yards in the end zone, and they won 15-14. But it was a great game. But a couple of things that stood out to me. Number one, Thompson's defense is really good. I mean, we already knew that, but they're really good. But also, Thompson's offense didn't really impress me that much. I mean, I know Trent Seaborn's supposed to be one of the best quarterbacks in the state, but he didn't really impress me that much against Grayson defense. Now, I know Grayson's defense is supposed to be really good, but I thought Thompson would have put up some points, but to only put up 14 points was kind of disappointing to me. But Grayson did get the win, but it was a really good game to me.
Oh, it was a great game. Thursday night, that game was a terrific football game, as you said, between two of the top programs in the country, not just in the South. And Stu McCann covered that game for us. I had the highlights on Thursday night, and kind of the way you saw it, Corey, you were there. You're right. It was that first drive, Grayson went right down the field, and you thought, wow, this could get ugly. But Thompson's defense played terrific. I guess the thing that surprised me, and I know Grayson's good, Corey, but Trent Seaborn really struggled. I mean, really struggled. And, he did throw the touchdown pass in overtime, but for most of the game, he was bottled up. He didn't do much. And the Thompson offensive line struggled to block Grayson, but they hung in there. And, after the scoop and score by Anquan Fagans at 7-7, you get it to OT. You score on that first down play from the 10-yard line on a slant from Seaborn to his receiver. Then you kick the point, and I give Grayson a lot of credit. They come back and score, and they're not going to fool around with trying to extend it. They're on the road. They go for 2. They've got a good 2-point play on the direct snap, and they score and win the game. So, yeah, you pretty much summed it up. It was a heck of a football game. I thought Grayson was the better team. I thought, I give Thompson a lot of credit for hanging in there, but Thompson offensively was really held down the entire game, I thought.
Yeah, they were, and they hardly ever crossed me. Back the possession they had in the overtime was the only time they reached the red zone. In fact, because they never really crossed midfield hardly ever.
Yeah. So, but like I said, I love those kind of games. It does not impact either one of these teams going forward, in their state. And, Hoover played, a school down in South Florida on Saturday and got a big win too on a final second field goal. So those kind of games are fun. They're great. And, get them in done before you get into your region play. But yeah, it was an exciting high school football weekend. There's no doubt about it. Great game here in Tuscaloosa, or actually up in Northport, as County High had a 28-7 lead against the Central Falcons, and the Falcons came back and scored 24 unanswered to win that one 31-28. What a game in that matchup, and glad to have high school football back, Corey.
As far as Florida State and Georgia Tech, I just thought that Georgia Tech looked like the more physical, in shape, faster team. But I tell you what, the tackling for both teams were off.
Well, you're going to see that. I'm just telling you, it is a product of the way the rules are now. We saw it last year, the first 2 or 3 games. Corey, you're right. You're right on, man. It's as I've talked with Ellis Johnson about, it's hard to be good at tackling when you don't practice tackling very much. I mean, you can, thud all you want and pull up, but tackling is like any other part of the game. To be a good tackler, you have to work at it. And I know they hit the dummies and all that kind of stuff. I think Alabama may be a better tackling team than some of these other teams are early. We'll see, but I think they've maybe have from what I've heard in their scrimmages, they've had a lot of live tackling. Obviously, everybody tackles in the scrimmage, but I think they've gotten after it pretty good. But I'm with you. I think the limited amount, and you'll see it in the NFL too, the limited amount of tackling that these teams have, it takes them a while to get into the groove. I mean, even 10 years ago, but certainly 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, most practices when you had pads on in college football were full contact practices. I mean, that's what they were. When you were in pads, high school too, and high schools have pulled back on that. And I get why, but it's harder to be a good tackling team when you don't tackle as much in practice. It just is. So you're right. Good observations this morning, Corey, both high school and college. Good job. And
then, the NFL, I tell you what, I know they already named the starter, but Bo Nix has really stood out for the Broncos. They got him for a reason, because I can't remember who the starter was last year, but they needed a fresh start, and I know it's preseason, but he's done what he was supposed to do, and I think he went. They had Russell Wilson last year, remember, and he, and Drew Lock and others that they've tried. But no, you're right. He earned that job. He wasn't given that job. He was drafted to be their guy, but he had to go out and earn it in camp, and he did. And you're right, they drafted him for a reason. I mean, the kid is athletic. He's strong. He's tough. He's a guy that can throw the ball down the field. He's got a high football IQ. He played I think started more college games than any quarterback in the history of college football. So, between Auburn and Oregon and the extra year and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, you're right. He has done it. Hey buddy, we got to hit the break, but man, thanks Corey, and a good way to start off the week. Nice phone call. Good talk to you, Gary. Roll Tide.
All right, it's 9:15 here on the Gary Harris Show. This hour being brought to you by Alabama Credit Union. And we're going to come back. We're wide open for phone calls in the next segment. And then we got Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com, Tider Insider TV at 9:30. This is the Gary Harris Show. Big week ahead, too. I'm going to talk to you about some of the things I got going on this week, including, of course, on Friday, our Bama football trivia contest.
Get ready for a fall refresh. Get your home crisp, clean, and ready for the season with the Home Depot. How doers get more done. Free delivery on over 2 million items subject to availability.
As much as Innisfree has evolved, it will always be that place to escape and have a good time. Whether it's for a game day weekend, to reminisce on college days, or to create new memories, if you're looking for a good time, there's only one thing to do. Head to the Free at 1925 University Boulevard. And don't forget about the Lucky Lunch Meat and 3 special.
$900. Visit us at 3537 Skyland Boulevard East, or check us out online, BMWofTuscaloosa.com. BMW of Tuscaloosa. Take your dreams for a drive.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
This will be one of the hottest weeks so far this summer. The sky mostly sunny today, the high 95. Clear tonight, the low 69. Tomorrow and Wednesday, very hot. The sky partly to mostly sunny with highs between 97 and 100. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9.
You're listening to the Gary Harris Show.
Goal line in, touchdown, Alabama.
On your home for Alabama sports, Tide 100.9, and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, 9:18. Welcome back into the Gary Harris Show. YMCA is the theme. Jeff Knox, the CEO of the YMCA of Tuscaloosa, joins us this morning. I've been talking about a couple of great specials they've got going on right now through the end of September, and Jeff is going to fill us in on them. Good morning, Jeff. How are you?
Good morning. How are you?
Great, man. Good to see you yesterday when I was in there for my workout, and I've been talking about it now for a while, but I want you to kind of add in. This is any time's a great time to join the Y. Let's be clear on that. But now is the best time because there's no joining fee now until the end of September, right?
That is correct. So you could save up to $75 by coming in now. It's a great time to get started on whatever your goals are because, the kids are back in school, so come on in.
Absolutely. And I have been also an advocate for personal training. Listen, there are a lot of people, they can get in there. They don't need help. More power to them. As I have gotten older, I have enjoyed the benefits of personal training. And I know the YMCA's 3 certified trainers. It's something, at least for me, Jeff, that can get you over the hump. You still have to do the work. I mean, I always like to say, nobody's going to be able to do it for you, even a personal trainer. But the way that they can advise you, the way that they can help you, the way that they can push you, it's very, very, very critical, I think, sometimes for people that are having a hard time getting where they want to go. And the great special that you've got going on right now with personal training, either single or duo. Explain that to us a little bit, if you don't mind.
Sure. You are absolutely correct. Sometimes the personal trainer is what makes the difference. And we are running a special 10% off all new packages, which could save you hundreds, before the end of the year. And because personal training has become so critical in people's health journeys, we've now up to 7 trainers that are available.
Oh, wow. That's outstanding. Okay, you've added some since I was doing some.
Quite a bit.
Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's great. I mean, that is outstanding. Also, to the facility, I guess time flies. I guess it's about 10 years old now, but it looks as good right now today as it did the day it was built. Just why I've got you on, for people that aren't familiar with the Y, what all you have to offer in terms of the facility with the main wellness area, the locker rooms, the saunas, the fitness rooms, and all the different classes and everything that are offered.
Sure. That's a great segue. This Saturday, we're having a birthday celebration. It's our 8th birthday. We'll have classes going on all morning leading up to kickoff for the first Alabama game. And we have group exercise from yoga to CrossFit-style functional training, body pump. We have our full complement of wellness. As you mentioned, we have 30 cardio machines. Powerlifting areas, you name it, we got it.
So YMCA of Tuscaloosa, 2300 13th Street downtown, 205-345-9622, YMCATuscaloosa.org. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Jeff Knox from the YMCA. It's 9:22 here on the Gary Harris Show. Phone lines are open on the Pinnacle Park at North River hotline at 205-342-9904. Wyatt's in with us this morning, in for Chase this morning. Wyatt, I've got you in here. Wyatt, pull up the mic because I'm curious to your observations. I know you got T-Town Sports Daily coming up at 11 a.m., but any takeaways from that opening? I say opening weekend, really week 0, just several games. But what were your takeaways from our first taste of college football this fall?
The ACC might be a little bit more of a headache to predict than we first expected.
Looks that way.
A lot of people picked Florida State. I picked Florida State to win that conference on my show as well. Might need to revisit that right out of the gate. Former Alabama offensive line coach Brent Key getting a huge win there. And Coach Saban actually hit it on game day. He said, my sleeper pick is Georgia Tech. And so if you can run the ball, You can cause some damage in college football.
That's what Saban saw, and that's where we're at now. That's what's so interesting about the way that Georgia Tech plays. Of course, when they had Paul Johnson, they optioned you to death, and they won a lot of games, but they were like, well, you're not going to be able to recruit in the modern spread area. So they hired Jeff Collins. He brought in the spread on offense. It didn't work. Now they kind of have found that blend between, they throw it some, but with everybody spreading you out now and the way the defenses are built for speed and to play sideline to sideline, when you do run it, and they're rare, you don't run it too often. When you run into a physical, downhill, straight ahead, powerful offensive line, it's going to be tough for these defenses. They're not built anymore to play against these type of teams. So now I think what you'll see is you'll start seeing some of these teams, maybe they can't recruit the skill people the way that other programs can, start going back to more downhill football. It's hard to defend because defenses aren't built for it anymore.
Absolutely. And Georgia won 2 national championships playing downhill football. Now they had a little bit of that spread aspect in the game because you have to have that in your offense to stay relevant in college football. But you're going to start to see a lot of these programs that get bullied on the recruiting trail. They're going to start saying, you know what? We're going to pick up big offensive linemen. We're going to pick up, heavy running backs, and we're just going to run it straight at you, 20, 30 times a game. And eventually your fast defense is going to be tired now because they're not as big and strong anymore. They're going to get tired, and we're just going to be able to lay on top of you and bowl you over and get 6, 7, 9 yards of carry.
As for Florida State, I was surprised a little bit how physically inferior they were on Saturday. Now I give them credit. They hung in the game. Their special teams was awesome. And, they had a chance. I'm going to say this for Florida State. And I know we're in Tuscaloosa. We thought Alabama deserved to get in the playoff, and they did. If you're a Florida State fan last year, you're upset. I understand. I would have, you went undefeated in a Power 5 conference. You did all you could do. This hurts because their fans are taking so much abuse on the internet. And last year was last year, and they still have a chance to be a good football team. But it is disappointing if you follow Florida State that you come out and lay an egg on national TV. Really, you've got it all to yourself in Dublin, Ireland. And their fans, their players, their coaches expected to win that game. Like, there's no other way around it. And it has nothing to do with last year. And they still have plenty of football left this year. But it was an awful way to start the season.
Horrible way to start the season. I almost think they were still hung up on last year, and that's
too much talk about it. You're right.
That's part of why they got upset against Georgia Tech as well, in my opinion.
That's a great point because during the week, it was so much talk about, well, this is a carryover from last year. We're going to prove. Last year was last year. It almost like they wanted to prove something. Way too much talk about how they got the shaft last year instead of focusing on this season. So now it's back to the drawing board for Florida State. There's no other way around it. I mean, you got to go back to the drawing board and you've got to get ready. But that's the beauty of college football, and especially early in the season. A lot of times we think we know, but we don't know. No one really does. And preseason polls, I've heard a lot of people saying preseason polls are useless. I still like preseason polls. I mean, they're fun, they're fine, they're adjusted. But there is some truth in the fact that you have to play the games. I've said this before, I don't gamble. I do, starting Friday, I predict every SEC game against the point spread. I do it for fun. And it's harder than picking 3 or 4 games that you really like. I do every SEC game that has a line. And last year was my poorest year. I think last year was the first year I did not finish above 500. I think I'd have to go back and look at it, but a game or two under 500. But most of the time I've been right around 60%. But I don't gamble. But if I did, and I'm in the minority here because I think most people took Florida State and most people took SMU. I liked Georgia Tech and I liked Nevada plus the points. Real quick thought on that one. Wyatt, Nevada at home on a Saturday night. SMU, as you said, a new member of the ACC, laying, what were they laying, like 27 and a half?
Something like that.
And most people went with SMU, including Wimp on the Blue Plate Special. I just thought, I know they've got the ACC attached to their name. I know they were a good team last year. I just thought first game on the road at night, week 0, I thought that was too many points, and it turned out to be way too many points. They were very fortunate to win that game.
Absolutely. And, SMU, they may be competing in the ACC. Yeah, they may be an ACC team at this point. but you didn't, like, you got to work up to being a Power 5 school. You're not just going to jump into the Power 5 and start running the show. Like, you're going to get humbled at some point. And I think they got humbled a little bit against Nevada, which, you know, it was not an environment they're familiar with. You know, it was actually cold. Like, it was like 50 degrees or something like that out there in Nevada, which, you know, I've been out to the west.
It could happen at night out there, yeah.
I've been out west like that. It is 102 at noon, and then at 6 p.m. it is 60 degrees. Like, you've got a massive swing out there. So they weren't entirely sure what to do with that weather, I think. I think they were expecting it to be hotter than it actually was. But they got a good win. I will say they
won the game.
They showed some good resiliency and good, you know, ability to respond to adversity is what I was trying to say.
Yeah, let's be clear on that. They won the game. You know, you look back at Alabama and South Florida last year. That was a horrible game for Alabama, but they won, you know, and that allowed them to go on and have the season that they had. So winning's the bottom line, you know, and they got it done. All right, it's 9:29. We'll take a break. We'll come back with Rodney Orr from Tider Insider TV, TiderInsider.com next, right here on the Gary Harris Show.
Life doesn't wait for when your finances are in perfect order. It just happens. But no matter what surprises come your way, Alabama Credit Union will be here to help make it affordable with great personal loans, mortgages, and auto loans. They offer an easy application process and fast decisions so you can stay focused on feeling good about whatever life brings your way. Alabama Credit Union will be here to help make it affordable with great personal loans.
Checked at least once or twice a year. Let your doctor know you are concerned about the health of your kidneys and ask what you can do to keep your kidneys healthy.
Since 2011, Billy's Sports Grill, located on Main Avenue in historic downtown Northport, has been serving their legendary signature chicken sandwich, award-winning wings, and handcrafted cocktails. Billy's is also the spot to watch all your favorite sporting events with big screen, high-definition televisions in both dining rooms, at the bar, and outside.
Or text DEAL to 511-511. Text DEAL to 511-511 today. All dogs are unique. Your dog results can and will vary. Message and data rates may apply.
Follow Tide 100.9 on Facebook today to watch our live shows, read the great articles, and interact with Bama fans today.
All right, 9:32. Welcome back into the Gary Harris Show right here on Tide 100.9 FM and 1230 AM WTBC. And it's Rodney Orr time, Tider Insider time here on the Gary Harris Show. Good morning, Rodney. How are you?
Good morning, Gary. How are you doing?
Doing very well. It's game week. It's here. We have our first in-season press conference today. A little bit different than it was under Nick Saban. We'll get the coordinators at 11:30 over at Mal Moore in the Naylor Stain Media Room, and then we'll get Coach DeBoer at noon. But it's game week. Just your feeling, the vibe that you have as Alabama gets it kicked off this Saturday night against Western Kentucky.
Well, I mean, I think, you know, as we kind of look back over camp and really everything that's happened since he arrived, I mean, it's been really positive, I think. And I felt like that the camp that they had, all the feedback we've gotten is that it went extremely well. I think you've, you know, got a team here that's, I think 247 came out last week, Gary, and said it was the most loaded roster in the country, which is, you know, I think probably might have surprised a few people but it is. It's a really talented roster. And look, I look forward to Saturday night to getting the Kalen DeBoer era kicked off.
I think everybody does. I said last week, there's three types of openers in my opinion. There's a Florida State, Georgia Tech type opener. Or we're going to have some certainly this coming up this Saturday's high profile openers. Let's say, you know, Georgia and Clemson, obviously, where both teams are hyped and pumped and ready to go. And then there's an opener like Auburn has, playing Alabama A&M, where you're just playing a team that's so outmanned that, you know, I mean, they're going to win the game regardless of how they play. And then there's an opener like Alabama has against a team that everybody expects you to beat in Western Kentucky. And certainly we expect Alabama to win the game too. You're a big favorite, but this is a competent football team. This is a team with TJ Finley at quarterback. It seems like he's been playing for 10 years. He's still just a junior. He has big time experience in the SEC. They've got a really good offensive scheme and plan, and they'll come in here fired up. I'll say this. It's tricky in terms of if you're Alabama, you need to play clean and you need to play well and you need to put this football team away early. You know, they might hang around and make it interesting for a while. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I don't know enough about Western Kentucky right now. I haven't started looking into them. I'm going to do that after, this press conference later this
afternoon.
Well,
they're not Alabama A&M. That's what I'm saying. They're not, it's not just a total pushover.
Yeah. Well, I do know about Finley. Obviously, he's been around a while. I think he's a, really strong arm quarterback. He's been in a lot of systems. He's an experienced guy. So you're going up against an experienced quarterback for sure. And again, I think it's a great opener for Alabama. I think the first 2 weeks should really give them a chance to kind of, get into a flow as they start to move into the games that I think are going to be probably what I would expect to be more challenging. Certainly not diminishing Western Kentucky or South Florida by any means, because we saw what happened last year when Alabama went down there, played South Florida. I mean, that was they were fortunate to get out of that game. But I think it's a really great opener. It's going to give Alabama some challenge, obviously, being in Kalen DeBoer's first game. But I feel really good about where Alabama should stand in that game.
Been so much talk, and we've discussed it. New schematics, new schemes on both offense and defense. I can't wait to see them in a game. What do you think will look most different with Alabama football under Kalen DeBoer as opposed to Alabama football under Nick Saban?
Just Saban not being on the sidelines.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Just a probably a little bit different. And people talk about. How, you can do it so many different ways. I mean, there's really not one way to do it. Nick Saban had his personality. Kalen DeBoer has his. But I think both of those guys have the same thing. It's a burning desire to be successful, to win, and all of those things. So I think they share a lot of things, but also I think they do things differently. But, I think it's going to be really as excited as I am about the Kalen DeBoer era, make no mistake about that. I'm really sold on the guy. I'm sold on the hire and all of that. But it is going to seem really odd. 17 years, which, by the way, seems like it went by in the blink of an eye.
Yeah, it does.
But 17 years of Nick Saban, you get used to him and the way he did things. And, just seeing him there on the sidelines, the way he even ran out of the tunnel, you used to comment on that all the time. He never deviated from that, the way he came out. So, you're going to miss that for sure. But at the same time, like I said, extremely excited about the Kalen DeBoer era and watching this team and how they develop over the course of this season.
Yeah, 6 p.m. kickoff on Saturday night inside Bryant-Denny Stadium, and of course on September 7th, the next week, we'll dedicate Saban Field against South Florida. This week, Rodney, is game week. I know Coach DeBoer said last week when he met with the media on Thursday that they would start a little bit of install and working on Western Kentucky. But this week is a game week. So my question is this: I don't know how much they've already put in. You don't either. We know nobody does on Western Kentucky. And since it's game week, do you think the focus is just strictly on Western Kentucky, or will they also look ahead a little bit, maybe at South Florida, Wisconsin? How do you think that works?
No, I think I would be surprised if they weren't pretty much. Now, there may be a period or two where they do something during the week on future opponents. I remember Nick Saban saying they did that, that they would work throughout the season. They would always have a period or two. So maybe they do that. I'm not 100% sure how Kalen DeBoer does it, but I would probably think that most of this is going to be geared towards Western Kentucky, and I do think this too. And Kalen DeBoer said that he's done some things that maybe in a year or two he'll do differently, like bringing in speakers, because he's trying to sew into the program, the kind of culture that he wants. And I think, look, it's his first game, and I think probably some people, kind of downplay Western Kentucky, whatever that might be. But I think it's really important for him, this first game. You want to go out there and you want to set the tone. I mean, I believe that. I believe you want to go out there and set the tone in this very first game. So I think probably, you're going to have most of this focus on Western Kentucky.
Rodney Orr with us from TiderInsider.com, Tider Insider TV. The challenge that Kalen DeBoer has, and all coaches have in this day and age, in the NIL era, in the portal era, in the me first era, I call it, is to keep your team engaged. And what I mean by that is, Rodney, during fall camp, everybody's getting reps. You're battling for positions. Now we're into the season, and everybody knows where they stand. We expect to get a depth chart today at the press conferences coming up at 11:30. I think there's more of a challenge than there's ever been for those players or for those coaches to keep those players that aren't in the, say, the too deep and aren't going to be playing, to keep them engaged, to keep them doing what they need to do on the scout team during the week, to understand that there's probably people in their ears saying, well, you're not going to play at Alabama. We need to start making plans to leave. People worrying about their NIL and when that's coming through and do I get my money? When do I get my money? All the things that go with the game today that you didn't even face 5 years ago. How big a challenge do you think that'll be for these coaches as we go through a season?
Well, I think it's a big challenge, huge challenge. There's no doubt. I mean, even this depth chart, there's other schools that go through it and start looking at it. And, they're already looking at guys. They've already been looking at guys on your roster,
That's right.
And I think that's the real thing with the depth chart now. These kids get very discouraged. They'll see this depth chart. They'll already start because they're young, easily influenced. And so I think it is really important for, the staff to, communicate with all of these players where they stand and what their opportunity is going to be. So really, if I was Kalen DeBoer or any coach right now, I'd hate to put out a depth chart because people sometimes do read too much into that as well. I think because things can change over the course of a couple of weeks. But I assume there's going to be one put out today. He was asked that last week, and he said, at some point in the week, they would probably put something out. I don't know if that means today, but we'll see.
A couple of other matchups I want to ask you about. We're not going to go around the SEC or anything like that, but I am curious as to your thoughts on Clemson at Georgia, because this is a marquee game. You got Georgia number one in the country. A lot of people have already coordinated them, the national champions, them are Ohio State. And then you got Clemson kind of trying to pull themselves back up to where they were just a few years ago. And that was in that, elite level team. Now they're 14 in the country. That game is in Athens. It's a big game, and I think it's a big game for Clemson to prove that they still are among the elite. What do you think of that matchup?
Well, check that, Gary. Is it in Athens or is it in Atlanta?
It's in Atlanta. It's in Atlanta.
Yeah,
yes, absolutely. It's at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I caught myself as soon as I said it. Yeah, they're playing them, but still, let's be honest. Even though Clemson's a short trip from Clemson to Atlanta or to Athens, it's still going to be primarily, I think, a Georgia vibe. But yeah, it's in Atlanta.
Yeah, I really. And I said this on TiderInsider.com. We talked about this on our message board with our, some of our members or all of our members this last week about that game. I think Dabo will have Clemson ready. Mm-hmm. I think they're defensively. I think they're going to be better. I was talking to someone last week, and they were saying, Clemson really wasn't bad last year. They had a few things go wrong. What'd they end up 9-4? I think, Gary. That they were just a whisker away from, winning a few more games that would have kind of made the perception a little bit different. I think they've got some talent, man. I think they've got talent up front defensively. It's going to be a real interesting game. I expect Clemson to play really, really well. Now, I have stopped short of picking them to win the game, but I'll be a little bit surprised if it's not. I think Dabo's going to rise to the occasion. I'll put it that way. I really do. I think Dabo's been challenged. I think he's a great competitor, regardless of what, some people say about Dabo and, his quirky ways or whatever. He doesn't like the portal and all this other stuff. Well, no coaches do, but he doesn't want to get involved in that. Whatever his philosophies are, those aside, I think he's going to have this team ready. I think it's going to be a very competitive game.
What about Miami at Florida? What a big game for these two former Saban assistants. Mario Cristobal in Miami, I think the expectation is that they take that next step this year and that they get into the playoff. And for Florida, Billy Napier is fighting for his life. There's no other way around it. And they got a brutal schedule starting with this opener. But it's in Gainesville. I don't know. I'm not ready to pick it yet, but kind of like you were talking about with Clemson, I got a feeling Florida's going to play strong this Saturday afternoon at home. What do you think?
Yeah, I haven't thought about it that much. Like you said, both those guys are kind of embattled right now, in their programs. Going to be real interesting. It could be a bad sign for the loser, to be honest with you. I don't know. I would kind of maybe lean, you said Gainesville, I would maybe lean that way a little bit with Napier at home. We'll see. But I think Mario is really wearing thin down there in Miami, too. He's recruited extremely well. So I think this is a big year for him. Could be, it could be a do or die for him. And certainly, we talk about Napier, too, and you mentioned that schedule. Wow. I mean, that just does not set up well for him at all. But if they could manage a pretty decent season, it could be good for him.
It sure could. All right. Looking back to week 0, there weren't many games, but there was a big one over in Dublin, Ireland. I want to get a couple thoughts from you on Florida State at Georgia Tech. I thought that, and Nick Saban said this, teams like Georgia Tech are going to be difficult to play against because now everybody's set up to play sideline to sideline, speed defenses, play the spread. You get somebody that runs downhill at you, they can give you trouble. So that, first of all, the physicality of Georgia Tech. And secondly, Wyatt brought up something this morning, Rodney, I think is true. I think Florida State, and I get it. If I were a Florida State fan last year, I'd have been upset too, man. I mean, you went 13-0 in a Power 5 conference and you got left out. But it seemed like they hung on to that too much. It seemed like that the theme going into a brand new season was we want to show everybody, and they got beat. And to be honest with you, they got beat up physically. Your takeaway from that game and what Georgia Tech was able to do. Now, Wyatt also said to me off air that, or actually it was Barry Sanderson said, can Hans King take that kind of beating the entire year running the football as much as he does? But Georgia Tech lined up and just kind of physically handled Florida State on Saturday.
Yeah, and again, I watched bits and pieces of it, and I was really impressed, obviously, by the job Brent Key's done. He's done a fantastic job. I think had a lot of doubters, again, but I think he's done an extremely good job there. I think one thing that kind of jumps out at me is this, and I don't know the numbers of transfers. I think Florida State had a bunch of them. I know they had a bunch of them from Alabama.
Yeah, a bunch from Bama.
They had the Marvin Jones started for them, Marvin Jones Jr. He's transferred from Georgia. They had a lot of different new faces. And Gary, I just really wonder if a lot of that, the way they played, just the turnover they've had, the lack of continuity, that's the thing that really struck me during that game. I'm sitting here going, this lack of continuity that Florida State has had, with the influx of portal people, what is it going to do to the game across the country? The teams that have, kind of relied on that portal, bringing guys in. Now you have to, you have a spot player here and there, 3 or 4 here and there, but their whole kind of starting lineup seemed to be dotted with transfers. So, and even the quarterback, DJU, so I look at that and I'm saying, wow, this could really impact the game overall, just the quality of the game across the board. So that's really what struck me in that game.
Very good analysis. All right, before we wrap it up, recruiting update, Alabama kind of gets its man, and that's the running back out of Quitman, Mississippi. Kylan A.K. Deere announced last week for the Crimson Tide. No surprise, but I think it's a good thing for Alabama to go ahead and get this commitment before the season gets started. And this is a 5-star running back just across the state line, a guy who originally committed to Ole Miss, but a big pickup for the Crimson Tide.
Yeah, I mean, he was their guy. He was the number one target, apparently, it appears to us anyway. He's a guy that really versatile. I think he's a great fit for this system, Kalen's board, because of his versatility. We had some video of him on Tider Insider TV. The ground level video that we had last Tuesday night really showed the way he can run with power, which I had not seen that. But watching that tape was really impressive, the way he ran with power, but also the great speed and elusiveness, explosiveness that he has. He's a tremendous receiver out of the backfield. And just seeing him, there was some more video we had with, just seeing his frame, the weight that you can see. He's 200 pounds and he can carry more. He's going to get bigger. So, I'm really impressed with Deere. I think he's a high-quality back. By the way, I think they open Thursday night, Gary, in Meridian. So anybody in the area, that'd probably be a great game to go to over in Meridian.
Yeah, I'll be able to get some video of that game, too, from my friends at WTOK, so I will. But it's easy to forget with Deere that Alabama still has Anthony Turbo Rogers committed. And he had a big game that's a loaded Montgomery Carver roster against Vestavia. They won that game. I think it was 41-19. He does a lot in the kicking game. I think there's been an assumption that he's going to wind up decommitting, but as of right now, he's still committed to Alabama, and he's an explosive player, Rodney. I think it's important that Alabama fans remember that Anthony Rogers is still committed to the Crimson Tide as a running back, although he can do a lot of different things. This is a player not to be overlooked.
Yeah, special. He may be termed a specialty back. May not be an every down guy. He's not that big. Probably, 5'8", 180 maybe. Don't know his exact size, but it's somewhere in that neighborhood. But, yeah, he's a guy, like you said, he's dynamic. I mean, he can return kicks. He catches the ball out of the backfield. He can do so many different things. He's dangerous. He's really dangerous with the ball in his hands, and you can get it to him in so many different ways. So, yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I think that, hopefully he sticks. This would give Alabama 2 outstanding backs and difference. Obviously they've got some differences. Although, like I said, I believe that even though he's bigger, that Deere can do a lot of the same things, in terms of the versatility. So right now, yeah, I mean, I know there's been a lot of scuttlebutt that Rogers may flip to Auburn or he may even flip to Ohio State. I know they were in there at one time. That was earlier. But it's a long process. It's a real long process, so we'll have to kind of see how it plays out.
And lastly, of course, the season's the focus now, as it should be. Anybody on commit watch that you're keeping an eye on for sometime in the near future?
No, but I'll say this, Gary. Again, this season, we see this every year. There will be kids that are going to pop up, that are going to have really big senior years. They're going to start off the first half of the season. They're going to emerge as guys that Alabama or other schools are going to jump in on, really, get a close eye on, however you want to phrase it. But this always happens when guys emerge. Maybe they've been in your camp or whatever, you hadn't offered them, but they kind of blossom, their senior years. So that'll be something to watch. But I also believe this. I also believe that once the season gets going, get into the flow of the season, and guys that are committed, that have visited you, a lot of times they have renewed interest. Things change. So I think there's going to be some guys that, and I don't know exactly who, that are probably committed to other schools that eventually you might see Alabama back in on in a very strong way.
Well, I saw one yesterday, and I texted you. I don't know how to say his name. Bradley Lunga-Basile, a safety linebacker. I was supposed to play some offense for the Baylor school. He's committed to Buffalo, which is interesting to me because Maurice Linguist, the former Buffalo head coach, is a secondary coach at Alabama, 6'2", 215. He was a torpedo yesterday out there for the Baylor school out of Chattanooga. So I'm just saying right now, I think that guy's going to wind up getting some SEC offers. Buffalo better hang on.
Yeah, like I said, that he could be one of those guys that we were talking about. They have a big senior year, they grab people's attention, and then all of a sudden, they've got a lot of opportunities. Yeah,
he was a devastating tackler yesterday. Great stuff, Rodney. We'll see you tomorrow night on Tider Insider TV at 6:30 on WVUA 23. And I know the book is really sold very, very well, and it should. It's a great story, but it's still selling. People can still get it if they want to have a good read going into this football season.
Sure. Yeah, it's bigger than Bama. Obviously, we've detailed it on your show here, Gary, but they can go to RodneyOrr.com or you can go to Amazon. Either one details the book there. You can order it there. It's only $19.95 plus shipping and handling.
And, of course, for the latest Crimson Tide coverage, it's TiderInsider.com. Thanks, Rod.
Okay, buddy. Take care.
All right, 9:53. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back and wrap.
Visit us at 3537 Skyland Boulevard East or check us out online, BMWofTuscaloosa.com. BMW of Tuscaloosa. Take your dreams for a drive.
Los Tarascos has been serving Mexican favorites like burritos, fajitas, and quesadillas since 1999. Their new location is at 4100 Owen Parkway in Northport. And of course, you can find Los Tarascos in Tuscaloosa at 110 Skyland Boulevard. The bar areas feature big screen television so you can enjoy your favorite sporting events. Los Tarascos features daily happy hour.
$100 on select Tempur-Pedic adjustable mattress sets and get a $300 instant gift. Get matched at Mattress Firm. Sleep at night. Restrictions apply. See store or website for details.
If you haven't already, you've got to try Tuscaloosa's unique breakfast, brunch, and lunch concept. Brick and Spoon, downtown Tuscaloosa at Timerson Square. It's fresh food with a Cajun flair featuring a full bar with build-your-own Bloody Marys and mimosas. Open daily, 7 a.m. until 2 p.m. Available for after-hours events, rehearsal dinners, receptions, and birthdays. They offer brunch and lunch catering. Call Brick and Spoon at 205-345-5551 for more information.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
This will be one of the hottest weeks so far this summer. The sky mostly sunny today, the high 95. Clear tonight, the low 69. Tomorrow and Wednesday, very hot. The sky partly to mostly sunny with highs between 97 and 100. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9.
Covering University of Alabama sports, as well as the national and local scene as well. The Gary Harris Show, only on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, 9:57. That's going to wrap it up for the first hour of the Gary Harris Show, brought to you by Alabama Credit Union. Alabama Credit Union, loans for real life. Also, a quick word about my good friends over at Who's Q and Brew in Tuscaloosa in the Northridge Center on Highway 82. They are doing a lot of good stuff, and I don't know what your schedule is going to be for Wednesday. You'll be coming in, I know, for your show. Wyatt, we're going to have some Who's Q and Brew barbecue brought in here Wednesday with Michael Hunger, the general manager, so we're looking forward to that. So get by and check them out. I went over there and had lunch yesterday. It was awesome. Had the ribs. They were incredible. All right, we're going to come back with hour number 2. We're going to get it started with some phone calls. Philip, you hold tight. We'll lead off with you. Also, Casey Smith on golf at 10:30.
Maracas smell amazing. Actually, Jim, most noses call them Gain Scent Beads. Try Gain Scent Beads. Way fresher than detergent alone.
Tuscaloosa's Old Colony Golf Course is an 18-hole championship layout designed by 1976 U.S. Open champion Jerry Pate. Director of Golf John Gray and fitting specialist Bob Montgomery are PGA certified. Mike Shivitz is the head professional and director of the Tuscaloosa Junior Golf Program. Call today to secure a tee time at the Tuscaloosa Championship Golf Course. Everyone can play. 205-562-3201. Old Colony is operated by Para.
WTBC Tuscaloosa and W265CG Tuscaloosa, a Town Square media station. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app. From the Fox Sports Studios in Los Angeles, here's Kevin Wyatt.
Some pieces of NFL news to report on this morning. Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel announcing that Bradley Chubb, Cam Good, and Isaiah Wynn will begin the regular season on the physically unable to perform list, so they will be out for at least the first 4 games of the season. And McDaniel did say that it's still to be determined whether Odell Beckham Jr. will join them. ESPN saying that the Browns expected to have Nick Chubb begin the season on the physically unable to perform list. And we've had a trade go down in the NFL today as the Jaguars, according to NFL Network, sending linebacker Trevis Gibson to the Seattle Seahawks in exchange for a late round draft selection. Major League Baseball, Aaron Judge, his 50th and 51st home runs of the season as the Yankees beat the Rockies 10-3.
Now, this hour's West Alabama real-time news update from the Tuscaloosa Thread Newsroom.
District 3 Tuscaloosa City Council member Norman Crow says the more than $10 monthly increase to water and sewer bills proposed by Mayor Mallix will allow continued growth in the city. Labor Day is a week from today, and travel officials are expecting another record-breaking holiday weekend, up 9% over last Labor Day. And higher heat and humidity levels are moving back into West Alabama by Wednesday, even worse on Thursday. Showers and thunderstorms forecast at times over the rest of the week could bring even higher humidity levels.
Get 24/7 local news coverage and sports updates when you download the free Tuscaloosa Thread app and sign up for twice daily email newsletters. The Gary Harris Show. UCM host Tider Insider TV. Crimson Tide Kickoff. Play-by-play for Alabama sports and sports director for WVUA 23. It's time for the Gary Harris Show on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, here we go. Hour number 2, the Gary Harris Show, right here on Tide 100.9 FM and 1230 AM WTVC. It's Monday, August 26, 2024. It's game week for the Crimson Tide. Going to be a busy, busy week here on Tide 100.9 FM and 1230 AM WTVC for all of our shows. And as I said earlier, I'm going to tell you some of the things I got planned this week coming up in just a little bit. But the second hour is going to get cranked up with some phone calls. And Philip has been holding, and always love to hear Philip, especially on a game week, because I know he's going to have some predictions for us. Good morning, Philip.
Oh, Gary, I love a prediction, and I've got one for you in just a minute, but it's not football. It's my favorite time of the year because you've got college football cranking up, but you also got the U.S. Open, which started about 5 minutes ago, and up in New York. Right. I'm gonna predict American Tommy Paul to win the U.S. Open.
Tommy Paul on the men's side, an American, yes. And that's a rarity these days for an American male to win a major of any kind. So bold prediction there.
Yeah, I like him though. He's a great player. He's number 14 in the world. Okay. I like on the women's side. I like the Italian Jasmine Paolini. She's pretty solid and a great player. And I don't know how good she'll do on the hard course. I just have a feeling she may take this thing.
Okay. Well, hey, listen, man. I love a good U.S. Open prediction. We don't get those much. Yeah. So
it's a lot of fun. You know, the matches are all up till late tonight. It's just something, a lot of fun to get involved in, and just tremendous matches. And the men's matches, Gary, can just about go either way.
Yeah. Yeah, oh yeah. Well, I like the Tommy Paul pick. I'm a little surprised on the women's side that you didn't go Coco Gauff, the American.
She's a great player, but she doesn't have that strong of a forehand. And if she's and those players they tend to eat her up. They just she doesn't have that strong of a forehand.
Okay.
So I don't know. I don't think she's going to do it. But anyway, we'll see how it goes. And I was pretty, everybody's talking about Georgia Tech, and they played a clean game. I thought their blocking was superb to watch. I mean, just superb. I do agree with Corey. I think Tech was in good shape. I think Tech was in really good shape. That was a good observation by Corey. And also, I think that Wyatt Fulton is right. He talked about this last week. You can't lose 2 games. You can't lose 3 games. You cannot lose 3 games, and now the pressure's on Florida State.
It is.
I believe that's going to be something really interesting. Doesn't mean they can't turn it around, which they can, but the pressure's on right now. I agree with Rodney. I think Clemson is going to be ready for Georgia. I'm not ready to predict an upset right there. But I'll tell you what that game reminds me of, Gary, and you correct me if I'm wrong. It reminds me of Alabama's 2008 game against Clemson in Atlanta. And not many people giving Alabama a chance, and Alabama winning that pretty much laid one on Georgia Tech.
They did. That started the run. That game, and I was there in 2008, You're absolutely right. Clemson was a top 10 team. Alabama was coming off Nick Saban's first year where they started 6-2, and then they had the textbook gate deal, wound up 7-6. Were a big underdog in that game and absolutely took Clemson to the woodshed. In fact, you'll remember Clemson had done nothing on offense in that game, and then C.J. Speller returned a kickoff for a touchdown to give them a little spark of life. But yeah, that game started it all for Nick Saban. Really did.
It really did. And wouldn't you agree that this game, Clemson-Georgia, sort of has that feel to it?
It has that feel. Like you said, Rodney's already said he expects Clemson to go in there with something to prove. And I'm with both you guys. I think it's going to be, again, I'm not ready to pick anything yet. I'll do it on Friday. But I think that's going to be a really competitive football game. And I think that Dabo, Yeah, I think he's going to have them ready, and that's going to be a heck of a game, man. It really is. That's going to be one of those that I'll be recording it, and I'll watch it back on, either late Saturday night when I get back done with the Alabama game, or sometime on Sunday. I'll definitely watch that one.
If I wasn't going to the Alabama game, I don't live far from Atlanta down here in Lynette. I'm not far from Atlanta at all. I tell you, Atlanta would be a blast to go to Saturday. I mean, I think you could probably get a ticket to the Clemson-Georgia game without too much problem. And then you got Georgia Tech and Georgia State that night. I mean, that's going to be a fun time to be in.
Well, it'd be great. Atlanta's a great city to be in any time, and especially opening college football Saturday. You're absolutely right. Even if you didn't go to a game, if you just want to go up there to the 1 billion sports bars and sports restaurants that they have, just to go in there on, starting out about 11 o'clock in the morning and just staying all day, or here in Tuscaloosa for that matter. That's something too that's become big here in town. I see it. The tailgating and the getting together with groups of people, oftentimes people come into town and don't even go to the game, Philip. They just come into Tuscaloosa. They do their tailgate. They set up these elaborate tailgatings with the big screen TVs and the satellite dishes, and they just throw their party. And some go to the game and some don't. Or they get to a local, sports bar and set up camp, that morning at 11 a.m. and they just go all day. And it's fun. Of course, I'm usually working the game, but I know people that do that.
Well, it's going to be fun to watch. I've got to get our roster memorized, and Wyatt put together the depth chart on Tide Sports 100.9 on the app, and that was good to get that. I'll scribble down some stuff from that. But I think Alabama's going to play a lot of guys Saturday. I think you may have 11 receivers that can catch balls in a game this year.
Wow. That's a lot of receivers, but you're right. They got a big group. You said during the course of the season you did. So somewhere at some point this season, you think there's many as 11 receivers that will make catches.
Well, I do. I would not be surprised to see that happen early on against especially this coming Saturday. It may dwindle a little bit as the season goes on, but I think we've got 11 guys. I think I counted 10 or 11 guys that I think could go in there and execute a route and a catch and do their job. I think that highly of that receiving core.
Well, I like your predictions. Can I give you my U.S. Open predictions real quick?
Yeah, please, Gary.
All right, I'm going to go against you a little bit. I think it's Coco Gauff's time. I think she wins. And I can't pick against Carlos Alcaraz. I mean, and I'm not a huge fan of the kid, but his talent is just, it's off the chain. And so I'm going to pick him on the men's side.
Oh, yeah, and that's a great pick. He's such a grinder. He's such a grinder.
Yeah.
I mean, he's like Nadal.
I mean, those Spaniards, the toughness, the endurance, the just determination that they play with, and he is a marvelous talent. So I'm pulling for the Americans to sweep on both sides. I'll take the American on the women's side, but I have to take Alcaraz on the men's side. Although I'll be pulling for Tommy Paul or another American.
I'll say this: Coco Gauff due. She is.
I think it's her time, so we'll see. Thank you, Philip.
All right, Gary. Thank you.
All right, let's keep it rolling, and let's get to Tony's been holding over in Birmingham. Good morning, Tony.
Good morning, Gary. You doing okay?
Doing good. Thank you.
Excellent, man. Good hearing from you.
Yes, sir.
I agree with everything that you said before Rodney came on, and then I would agree with everything Rodney said as well. I've been saying this for about 20 years now, since really in the mid to early 2000s when the spread became what it is. Where I was coaching at the time, we went from a transformation to where we went from a really, I thought a solidly good run downhill team to a spread team and a little bit more finesse than I would like. And it affected us. It affected us defensively. It took us about 2 years to get past it, to be honest with you. And I firmly believe the more points you score, the more you give up. And that's what I saw. That's what I witnessed firsthand. And if you, in today's football, and I do believe football is cyclical. And what I mean by that is I don't ever think the wishbone will ever be what it was in the 70s. But as far as the downhill run goes, I think Saban said something that I noticed during the Michigan game, that Alabama was so used to playing the hurry-up, no-huddle style they forgot how to play against a team that's huddled. And that's what I have seen since I've been coaching and been an offensive coordinator. We run plays in with receivers. Ain't nobody stealing our calls. And, we're a little old school when we go downhill. And when we go downhill, I don't think teams know how to prepare for that any longer. Mm-hmm. I really don't. And, in my opinion, if you want to be a good tackling team, you better practice tackling. Mm-hmm. You can't. Dummies don't fight back. Dummies don't try to break tackles. And so that's just my opinion. And if you look at the Big 12, I think it affected them, and that's why all the games were 49-42, upwards of 52-49. It's because everybody was running the same offense. If you have that offense philosophy, you're going to give up points. And I'm excited that Alabama is. I hope that we're going to be more of a downhill run team, and we lay a little bit more on our offensive line because I think we have the skill set to do so and the depth. I hope we have depth. And if you do that, I do think it'll end up a lot like 2008, 2009, 2010. And where you lost the game was more of an exception than the rule. I mean, look, Gary, Tua Tagovailoa is still to this day, in my opinion now, you can have callers argue, he's the most accurate college quarterback I've ever seen, in my opinion. There was not a throw he couldn't make. Now, he was throwing to some really dominant receivers. But I told some people I was around watching the games, it worried me because he was not playing in the second half. And when I saw us play against a hapless Arkansas team, and I think it was 2018, they scored 32 points on Alabama's defense. And I started seeing what I thought was a little bit of a trend. Hey, we're practicing against this offense every day in practice. We really didn't have a great downhill run game. We had Josh Jacobs, but it wasn't what I would call a power team. And I think it affected us. Clemson put one on us. And I don't know, again, those losses are the exception, not the rule. But I think that if Jalen Milroe is better this year, if he can read the defenses better, if he sees the crossing routes in the middle, if he hits his hot routes, I think Alabama's going to have a very special year. And I actually believe I don't have a lot of knowledge about Clemson's quarterback, but if they can get good quarterback play from him, I actually think they can beat Georgia. I've been thinking that all year. I think their defense is legit. And I don't know what Georgia has on the wide receiver front either. But I don't know how they match up. I think that I don't know how they match up with what kind of style Clemson's offense is running because I don't know what they're running. But Georgia's going to be in every ball game they play. Don't get me wrong, because they're ultra talented. And I do wonder too if some of the injuries they had the last 2 years, are they practicing as physical as they used to? Because they used to practice pretty physical. And again, Gary, you're dead on. If you practice tackling, you're going to be good at tackling. And that has affected college football and high school as well. What I coach, it has affected it. Scared of injuries, and next thing you know, you're in a 47-49 ball game because you can't tackle.
Well, obviously, I agree with most of your points, and you being a coach, it kind of reaffirms what I think. But I remember saying on my show many times when Alabama sped it up and went to the to the spread, I said, listen, you're not going to see the kind of defense that you're accustomed to seeing around here. You just can't, there's give and take with everything. And when you play fast and you score fast, you kind of change your personality, and you're going to give up more points. I think Alabama fans for a while, they wanted to spread offense and they wanted to score 50 a game and they wanted to give up 10. It's hard to do that. And I think you make some great points, Tony, obviously, and you understand it from a different perspective being a coach. And there's a lot of different ways to, as we know, there's a lot of different ways to get it done in football, but I am concerned that tackling is taking a hit, physicality is taking a hit, and I think you're right. I think you're going to see some of these teams now that say, hey, listen, everybody's built now to play sideline to sideline, 5-6 defensive backs, smaller defensive linemen. Let's just start lining up and pounding people. And you could see more people go back to that style of football now because everybody else. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Gary, but one other thing that people need to take in consideration is the 2-minute rule, the way the clock's not stopping on incomplete passes or out of bounds. If you have a lead and you're a downhill run team, that's to your advantage. You don't have to play from behind.
You're right.
And that takes time off the clock. No more stopping the clock, prematurely for a first down. That's big, Gary. I mean, in my opinion, I think it caught up with some teams last year during, in NFL, it catches them all the time. You get less possessions. So if you can have a team that can grind you down for first downs, and the next thing you know, you might be down 14-0, but it feels like 21 because you ain't moved the ball because of the defense on the other side. And again, that defense is used to tackling because they see it every day in practice. That the more physical team normally wins this game. Yeah, it's just a fact. And again, there are exceptions to the rule. You can be outscored. Don't get me wrong. You can't turn the ball over. If you go back in history and you look at the losses Alabama had when we had Jacob Coker, we had A.J. McCarron, when we had Greg McElroy. To me, the reason why those games were lost is because we had more turnovers than the opposing team. And I think you can look it up.
That's usually the way it went. Hey, great call, Tony. I got to get to the break, man.
Have a good one, buddy.
Good to hear from you. It is 10:18, and we're going to take a timeout. Tom, you hold tight. We'll get to you on the other side, and you'll have plenty of time before Casey Smith on golf at 10:30. This is the Gary Harris Show on Tide 100.9 FM and 1230 AM WTBC. Reminder to download the Tide 109 app. And also you can listen to us stream live at Tide109.
Queen price. Save up to $700 plus a free adjustable base with select Sealy mattresses. Get matched at Mattress Firm. Sleep at night. Restrictions apply. See store or website for details.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
This will be one of the hottest weeks so far this summer. The sky mostly sunny today, the high 95. Clear tonight, the low 69. Tomorrow and Wednesday, very hot. The sky partly to mostly sunny with highs between 97 and 100. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9.
Find Tide on Twitter at Tide109 to keep up with show announcements, guests, and our reporters in the field.
All right, 10:22 here on the Gary Harris Show this Monday, August 26th edition, and we're going to jump right back out on the Pinnacle Park at North River Hotline. A reminder, Pinnacle Park at North River, beautiful gated townhome community near gorgeous Lake Tuscaloosa. You have to see this townhome community to appreciate it. Find out more at pinnacleparknr.com. Tom is with us. Hey, good morning, Tom.
Gary, good morning. Good show so far.
Thanks.
What I called in about, I don't understand this love for Clemson all of a sudden for this season. I don't see it. And then on top of that, I think that coaching staff at Georgia, I think they're settling in. I think they're seasoned. They love each other at the coaching and the coaching staff. They know each other. Everybody has got this thing going in their direction. Plus, the king has moved on to a different palace. He's no longer at the old palace. And that takes a lot of pressure off of all three of the major coaches over at Georgia. I say they will kill Clemson and cover the 14 points.
Well, you make your prediction. I'll note it, and that's what's great about college football, man, is we all get to weigh in on their opinions.
I appreciate everything everybody else said, but my take is just a little different.
Well, I appreciate your take, because you're right. A lot of people so far the morning seems to be the theme that Clemson's going to play them tough. So you call in and you say, just go, Georgia's going to manhandle them, which
I think so. And for the reasons stated. And I really believe there's a comfort level that Coach Smart has reached over there, and he's just now really coming into his prime as a head coach.
Well, he has been phenomenal. There's no doubt about it. And this game Saturday is a huge game for a lot of reasons. But I'll tell you this, the ACC, Florida State, most people's favorite to win the league, got off to a bumpy start, obviously. SMU, very fortunate to win against Nevada. So all of a sudden, you've got a situation where ACC pride's on the line here. If Georgia does put a whipping on Clemson, that's not going to be a good look.
Yeah, you're right. And but I'm not so much worried about conference status or anything else, because I'll be honest with you, I think that Florida State and Clemson, they're gonna hit the door first chance, and I don't think that. I think they could care less what it looks like or conference pride or anything like that. I really do, because they're looking to get out. And but I really think though that it's going to be interesting to me how Georgia does in that game. And I tell you, to me, Georgia's going to be a handle all freaking year. They're going to be tough.
All right, Tom. Great call, man. I don't know where Wyatt stepped out to, but my phones are ringing off the hook. So I'm going to grab a couple more calls. Thank you, buddy. All right, good to hear from you. All right, let's get, I'm just going to take it live on the air. You're on Tide 100.9 FM, 1230 AM WTBC with Gary Harris. Who is this?
It's Bryce.
Hey, Bryce. Good. All right. Wyatt stepped out, so I'm answering the phones now. What's going on, pal?
Well, I had a dream Thursday night that you got on your radio show Friday and said Auburn was going to win 9 or 10 games. It was a horrible dream, Gary.
Well, was it just a dream, or did I indicate that I think I did say that I could see Auburn. I think Auburn's one of those teams that you can make a case for them to go 6-6 or 7-5, or you can make a case that they could go 9-3. You know, so
Gary, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
Gary, I mean, that was just a horrible dream to me. I mean, don't take this wrong. I mean, it's like, I really thought a lot different from you when you said that. And man, you've had a good relationship over the years, and we got along and agreed on a lot of things, but we can't agree on that. I'm sorry. I don't hurt your feelings.
No, you didn't hurt my feelings. First of all, I didn't say for sure that I'm going to pick them to win 9 games. I said you can make a case. Listen, a lot of times when I'm looking at a team, I'm looking at it from their fans' perspectives. Every fan base is going to find, you know, most of the time, best case scenario. And if you're an Auburn fan, best case scenario is with that schedule that I look at it, and right now I say there's only 2 sure losses at Georgia and at Alabama. That doesn't mean they are not going to lose more games, but those are the only 2 that I just say right off the bat. Auburn's going to for sure lose those games. I think the other games are, up for debate. So we will see. So anyway, but listen, Bryce, man, don't let me give you any nightmares, pal. Okay?
No, listen, real quick, I was going to tell you, I'm going to stick with my prediction. I'm going to be the first one to tell you I was wrong, if they don't come true.
All right, brother.
I just don't think they have good quarterback play, and they don't have a defense. I think best case scenario 6-6, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, I wouldn't surprise. I think I picked them like 7th or 8th in the league. I have to pull out my ballot, so I certainly don't have them at the top. But we'll see. We'll start getting a feel for it here the first couple of weeks of what these teams are going to look like. Hey, thank you, Bryce.
Hey, I appreciate you and letting me talk. And like I said, I'd had to give you some of that. You know that.
I know. Keep that Cowboy straight. I'm surprised he hadn't called in.
Hey, Cowboy, Cowboy, he don't. He, it's just crazy. 6 months ago, when Washington was playing before DeBoer got here, he was all over Caleb DeBoer. I even saw him wearing a Washington shirt when I went and visited him last year. And now he's just done a 180. He thought the guy from Oregon, and that's another thing. I don't see this Oregon, all this love for Oregon. I don't think they got the defense to compete to win a championship. All this love for Oregon, it would really surprise me. Everybody was picking Oregon.
Well, they got a lot of talent. Hey, got to run, Bryce.
/deal or text DEAL to 511-511. Text DEAL to 511-511 today. All dogs are unique. Your dog results can and will vary. Message and data rates may apply.
You see him on WVUA 23 covering sports and on Tider Insider TV on Tuesday nights. Don't miss a minute of the Gary Harris Show. Weekdays from 9 to 11 on Tide 100.9.
All right, 10:33. Welcome back into the Gary Harris Show, and it's time for Casey Smith on golf, and should have a great segment today. Certainly, a lot to discuss. Good morning, Casey. How are you?
Good morning, Gary. Doing well. Thank you. Hope you're well.
Doing great, man. And we're down to the final 30 on the PGA Tour, the Tour Championship coming up at East Lake. And the BMW Championship out of Castle Pines, Colorado had drama on so many different levels. I mean, there was, the battle to win the tournament, the battle at the back half of the top 30, people trying to get in and get into that top 30. Justin Thomas made it. We'll get to him in a moment. But let's start with Keegan Bradley, because Keegan Bradley had to battle just to get to Castle Pines, and the Ryder Cup captain for next year went out and won the doggone tournament, man. I mean, give it up to the guy. I mean, that was a huge win for him, and now he'll go into East Lake as one of the guys to certainly, keep an eye on.
Yeah, I mean, he's the hot hand right now, age 38. PGA Tour wins. He's won 3 times on the PGA Tour his last 2 seasons, which is combined more than all of the Paris Ryder Cuppers captain's picks combined.
Jeez.
Ricky, JT, Spieth, Cantlay, and Morikawa all have 2 wins over the past 2 seasons. So he's playing the hot hand. He's having a good, last few months being named the Ryder Cup captain for next year at Best Play Age Black. I think he's probably played his way onto the President's Cup team for this year. What a strange turn of events. First win for his dad in person. And that 5-iron that he hit on 17,
Beauty.
Like he said, is as good of a golf shot as I've ever hit in my life. And the timing of it was impeccable. He needed it, and he executed it. And now he's in the field at East Lake. And, outside of really, those guys really, I truly don't think they think about the money. I know it comes sort of second nature. But he's playing with a legit chance to continue to win a lot of money, because Scotty Scheffler's in another spot out there. I think Xander would have had a better week this week. He could have probably caught him, but Scotty's probably uncatchable. But Keegan's sitting there in a top 10 position to where second place pays a ton for the full year's, FedEx Cup standing. So he just continues to, honestly, got to look at what's ahead. If he continues to play golf like this, he'll play his way onto the Ryder Cup team next year.
He held off some really good players. Oberg is going to be a star. Sam Burns was right there. And Adam Scott, who's even older than Bradley. Adam Scott's in his 40s, and he's had a great comeback this season and is playing great, and had a chance to win.
Well, he missed the green, which is crazy to me. Adam Scott coming down the stretch on the back 9. He made 4 bogeys when he had less than 125 yards to the hole.
Or he'd have won.
He'd have won. Starts off with an eagle. So I'm shocked at how good of an iron player he is, that he truly missed the green on 4 shots. And his putting was atrocious. I know he puts the longer putter. He hits it so good that he just stays in it. Whenever he's really playing good golf, he hits it so good that he's going to be around it, because he really does. He's going to give himself more chances than anyone. But down the stretch, I was shocked that he left the pin in on the last putt to tie, which would ultimately tie if he makes it. Mm-hmm. And it's 11 feet. And so I'm sitting there with some friends, and I said, he's leaving the pin in. It means he's taking the aggressive line. And I said, but if you leave the pin in, the hole's smaller. Ultimately, from that distance, it is. It's a great alignment tool from a longer putt. But when you're putting 12 feet to try to win, you really need to pin out unless you're just taking the breakout and you're going to hit it in the hole. He didn't even get close to the hole. So, I don't know. It's like the long putters are such a hot and cold thing. And, outside of Bernhard Langer, you really don't see a lot of them the broomsticks hold up down the stretch under pressure. It's just there's a little bit more variable to it.
Yeah, I'm with you on that putter. On the flip side of that, at the lower end of the top 30, is Justin Thomas, who, of course, last year didn't even make it to the FedEx Cup playoffs. He finished 71st and only the top 70 advance. He went into this tournament in good shape, and then he shot 76, 72, 74, and it looked, I'm not going to say hopeless, but it didn't look good. First of all, give him credit. He came out yesterday and had one of the better rounds of the day with a bogey-free 468. So he came up clutch when he had to be, including making a 6.5 footer for par on 18, which ultimately got him in. But then he needed some help, and he got it. And I've talked with you about this before. Even at the highest level, pressure is real. Harman felt it. Norwood felt it. Jason Day felt it. I mean, all those guys, if they just make a putt, JT doesn't make it in, and all three of them just, they didn't, I don't use the term I used with you in the text, but they messed up. And JT played well enough to get in. So I want to give him credit for how he played yesterday, but he needed a lot of help, and in this case, he got it. I mean, there were short putts that all three of those guys had. If they make any of those putts, they're in, and he's not.
I'll tell you what, for as good of a putter as Brian Harman is, to have missed that putt, and where I was sitting was where Brian Harman's coach was going to be coming into the place, the people I was with, when he missed that putt. I mean, changed a lot for a lot of people's travel plans, and sitting on that side of it, like, they all thought that putt was made. He's really, really good putter. So JT got the help he needed from that aspect, and then he went out and shot the fourth lowest round of the day as well with a 68 and a bogey-free 68 too. So he's got to have some confidence going into East Lake. Making East Lake is, the Tour Championship is such a big deal. Yeah. It's a huge deal. You don't sit there at home, watch your friends. You get one more week at it. You go in riding some momentum from a 68 bogey-free. This is a brand new golf course at East Lake this week. It has not been played by anyone. They just opened it for member play last weekend from a full renovation. And so you have to think that he likes that. He likes playing over here. It's anybody's take, anybody's game. And you're going to need to be able to hit it high because the greens are, everyone I know that's a member saying everything's really firm. So, what if he goes out and plays really, really well and finishes? If he goes out and has a top 5, he finishes he moves up 20 spots or so. So, really a lot to play for him, and good that he didn't just mail it in. And, speaking of help, Keegan Bradley JT owes Brian Harman some wine for sure. And Keegan Bradley owes Tom Kim. Keegan Bradley doesn't even get in the field of the BMW if Tom Kim didn't finish double bogey.
That's
I didn't even know that.
That's right.
Yeah, so you got people all around that's making a lot of money. Those entries getting into this event, JT just made a lot more money just by getting in the field. Obviously, Keegan Bradley, look what happens to him. Gets in the field and wins.
It's crazy. It's crazy what can happen. Speaking of East Lake, and of course, as fate would have it, last week weather was great for this part of the country, and now this week it's supposed to be brutally hot again. But all players play in the same conditions, but it's gonna be a rough one, especially on Thursday and Friday before I think we get a little bit of a break on the weekend.
I mean, you have two of your last 3 events played in Memphis and Atlanta.
Yeah.
In August,
and yet they moved the PGA Championship up to avoid this. It makes no sense.
And if you don't think that money's not in play, you take FedEx, who is the title sponsor, and Coca-Cola and the Southern Company, who are 2 of the other big sponsors. And the money talks. They don't really care what the weather says. You're going to play in Atlanta because of those 2 sponsors. You're going to play in Memphis because of that sponsor. Better wear some light clothing.
Let's get to Nick Dunlap because, let's be honest. It is what it is. He's never complained about it. The rules are the rules. If he gets those 500 FedEx Cup points for winning the American Express earlier this year, he's in Atlanta. It's phenomenal.
He would actually have been our highest finishing. I looked this up. Our highest finishing player that we follow with Alabama State or school ties. Sepp Straka finished 23rd. Nick would have finished 22nd.
Yeah, so he's in. But to not get those points and still as a 20-year-old thrust into professional golf overnight, so to speak, to come back and win another event, to battle to get into the top 70, then advance to the top 50 and get to the BMW Championship. And played really the first 3 days, played really well, missed some putts. The putter started going really south on Saturday. And then yesterday, following him, just trying to track him a little bit, you just got the sense, Casey, that once he saw he wasn't going to advance to the top 30, just the strain, the grind, it took a toll on him. And he shot 5 over after rounds of 69, 72, and 70, which, you know, he was 5 under going to Sunday, could have easily been 8 or 9 under in contention. It got away from him yesterday. The putter just went south. I mean, he was missing putts. I mean, he just had a bad day, and he winds up shooting 5 over par. The season comes to an end, but what an incredible season for Nick Dunlap.
Yeah, I mean, a hands down winner of the Rookie of the Year. There won't even need a vote. Check that out. He had a phenomenal year. I would just wash away yesterday's round if I was him, is to get me to the off season. He finally gets some time off. I mean, he probably, as his age, is probably looking forward to coming back to Tuscaloosa, going to a football game, doing some normal stuff for a, 20-year-old kid. And, I think that he's got to be riding high for next year, knowing what he did and where he really would have finished. He gets to set his schedule. He doesn't have to go chase the fall ball around. He can really get himself in a good position going into next year, make sure he's fully well. Then he sets his schedule, and it's not – I mean, he's taken so many variables out because of how good he played down the stretch for his rest of his PGA Tour career. He's not going to have to worry, am I going to get in this event or this event or this event? It's, I got to go play from today. He knows his schedule for all of next year. And that is a big deal. And I think you're going to see him have a huge year next year. The guy's talent is really, there's just not many people out there that have that type of skill that he has. And, I mean, there's probably less than 10 for sure. And given the pedigree and winning pedigree, you got to be, if you're buying stock, you're buying all you can buy Nick Dunlap.
Wow, well said. All right, you hang out with some of these guys. You were a tour rep for Callaway, and a really good player in your own right, and you're around them. And you texted me last night that you wanted me to ask you about Max Homa. You got an interesting story on Homa, so I'm asking you, what's up with Max Homa?
So this has sort of slipped me by. No one made any big announcements about this. Max Homa's obviously not had his best golf.
Right.
Just been a little bit of a slump, and he had Mark Blackburn, this director of instruction at Greystone in Birmingham, who had been named the #1 top PGA teacher a couple years in a row because some of his success Max has had, and Wyndham Clark, some of these guys that he worked with. But really, Max is the one that put him on the radar. Max fired Blackburn. He fired Dr. Brett McCabe, who is obviously another Birmingham guy, works with a lot of tour pros. Mm-hmm. He had been off of social media, and, there's incentives for those PGA Tour players to be on social media because there's pay. And so he had self-imposed a ban thinking that was going to help him play golf. And, from what I've gathered, he was pointing fingers at and he seems like a great guy. But and I've always heard that he was. But I think, in this moment, knowing that a lot of those guys know they sign up to get fired, caddies, coaches, mental coaches, all that's just part of the nature of the beast. But to do it and not take any ownership and to point fingers at everyone else except for yourself, and then you go out there after you fire them and your game really doesn't get any better.
Right.
So we see he makes a re-entrance to social media and admits on social media that it was really him being off was not helping him play better golf. And now it just makes you wonder if he doesn't go back to those coaches, if that wasn't a little bit of a quick trigger given the success. And I mean, if you go read all the articles, listen to the content that's out there, he raves about those guys in Birmingham, McCabe and Blackburn a lot, and not that long ago. So quite interesting that he's fired his whole team last week and just sort of hastily fired them and pointing fingers at them.
Well, it's another example, and you and I discussed this on the show. Out there's a fine line between being elite on tour and being a guy who's, trying to make cuts and trying to, again, Justin Thomas, I heard him talking yesterday. If Adam Scott wins, that'll be his 15th tour win and, kind of solidify him as a Hall of Famer. Well, Justin Thomas was before he was 30, as we've talked about, had 15 tour wins, 2 majors and a Players. Already a Hall of Fame career, and now he hasn't won for well over 2 years and is in, great that he made it to Eastlake, but by his standards, it's a slip, it's a fall, and it's just a shot here or there. It's just amazing how
there's definitely a historical late 20s, early 30s slump period out there. And it's almost like you get to Keegan's age and Adam Scott's, and you're very much more comfortable in your own skin. Mm-hmm. We were talking just yesterday with some of the guys who work with guys on tour, where I was watching that, and it was like, these guys get a little bit more comfortable in their own skin, and they're comfortable in their travels, and they didn't just get married or didn't just have multiple kids or one kid, and trying to figure all these pieces out in their life with all this travel and all this money and all this new stuff, and so. I think there's some variables there to the family side that probably, causes a little bit of regression, and hopefully you'll see some of those guys. But when I look at it from a talent perspective, the guys that are coming behind them, these guys like the ones we named off that were the captain's picks at the Ryder Cup and all really good players and have been great players last year's Ryder Cup, those guys, when you look at really just on paper skill, Nick Dunlap's better than them. And there's more Dick Dunlap.
Yeah,
right?
They're coming every year. You're right. That's a great point, Casey. The guys coming in are better.
Gordon Sargent. If you look on paper, there's a little bit different from on paper and putting it on the scoreboard. But those pedigrees, they've been playing against each other. They're not scared of you, and their talent levels are insane, and their ceilings are much higher. And so that's why I think that's been an old school thing that's happened, but the fields and the college golf and the PGA Tour U, it's just so deep. Look at Aubert, right? Look at the season that 2 years he's had. This guy looks like he's been out there for 20 years.
Mm-hmm. No, man, you're dead on. You're dead on, dude. You better rack up the wins while you're in your 20s because you can get lapped in a hurry. As much as we talk about JT, look at Spieth, look at Fowler. They are really,
Cantlay.
Yeah, Cantlay. It's just amazing. Hey, before we close out the segment with the PGA Tour season coming to an end, what's going on with LIV? Do they have any more events? Where does their season stand?
Well, I got 2 other things. Congrats to Stuart Sink, Florence native, on his first Champions Tour win. Big win for him. I think many more to come now that he'll be playing a lot more going forward on the Champions Tour. And Lydia Ko probably had as good of a summer as anyone. Her mom was telling her 3 weeks ago that she was a better golfer when she was 15 and been slumping, yada, yada. And she said, I'm going to go out there and prove my mom. She wins gold. She qualifies for the Hall of Fame. Then she wins the British Open, Women's Open, and really at St. Andrews. So, a household name that helps women's golf, which is already back on the rise. And LIV Golf, I'm gathering that now that this PGA Tour season is even over more, we're getting closer and closer and closer to a deal getting done. I hear that it's really frameworking now and how and when they're going to get this thing back together. Players now on both sides want it to happen. All the management on both sides want it to happen, maybe minus a few egos, but it's really getting the dollars and cents worked out now.
All right. Well, I'm glad you got that in about the Women's Open and Stuart Sink. Yeah, 2 big stories there as well. Great segment as always. Thank you, Casey.
Thanks, Jerry. Have a good one.
All right, 10:52.
Our coverage begins at 3 on your home for Alabama football. Presented in part by BMW of Tuscaloosa and by Pearl River Resort in Choctaw, Mississippi. Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
This will be one of the hottest weeks so far this summer. The sky mostly sunny today, the high 95. Clear tonight, the low 69. Tomorrow and Wednesday, very hot. The sky partly to mostly sunny with highs between 97 and 100. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9.
Alabama Crimson Tide lives right here.
Down to the pylon. Touchdown, Alabama.
On Tide 100.9.
All right, 10:54 here on the Gary Harris Show. Before we close it out, I need to mention that Tyler Gentry, former Alabama standout, has been called up to the big leagues by the Kansas City Royals and been having a great season in AAA. And he becomes the 70th former Alabama baseball player to make it to the big leagues. So hopefully Tyler Gentry will stick. He got called up because of an injury to Hunter Renfroe, but the Royals really like what they've seen from Gentry in the second half, particularly of his minor league season. Did not get off to a great start, but he has been pounding the baseball. And he's a high-ranked prospect for them. Was drafted in the third round in 2020. Out of Alabama, now he's in the big league. So congratulations to Tyler Gentry, and we'll be keeping an eye on him. All right, that's going to wrap it up for today's show. A reminder that you can catch me on TV tonight with your local sports on WVUA 23. I'm headed over to the press conferences as soon as I leave here. We've got the offensive coordinator and defensive coordinators, Nick Sheridan and Kane Womack at 11:30, followed by head coach Kalen DeBoer at noon. And I'll have coverage of that tonight on my sports shows. And, of course, tomorrow morning we'll be able to have some of that audio for you as well. Wyatt's coming up next with T-Town Sports Daily. Then from noon until 2, it's the Miller's Edge. And I assume we'll probably take the Kalen DeBoer presser live during the Miller's Edge. And then Fowler, of course, will take you home with the game from 2 until 6 this afternoon. I want to thank all my great sponsors for making this show possible. And I'm on the lookout for some more, by the way. So if you know anybody that wants to advertise, it's the highest rated show on Tide, 100.9 FM and 1230 AM WTBC. Get in touch with me. I'd love to get you hooked up with an advertising package here on the Gary Harris Show. So for Wyatt, I'm Gary. Thanks for listening, everybody. He's coming up with T-Town Sports Daily. Have a great day. I'll talk to you again in the morning at 9 a.m.
Thank you for listening to the